Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Zoom session, our workshop. We have a workshop today with Ralph Lauren. My name is Deontay Copeland. I'm Executive Director of National High School Basketball Association. And I'm here in Atlanta with our Atlanta chapter doing our kickoff for our chapter here in Atlanta. I'm gonna do some one of my coordinators, Mr. Coach Jonathan Perry. Coach, come say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for joining us. Hey, guys.
All right, and I'm gonna introduce also our speakers. Apparently, we got some also some of our students. We got students here at Luella High School. We also got students in Hampton High School. So say hello, everyone.
Hi, guys. Hey, guys. I'm Miss Lindsay, the sponsor of Ladies Unlimited here at Hampton High School. And we thank you, Miss Weatherspoon, for coming. I'm looking up because you're projected. I'm so sorry, but I just want to thank you for all that you're doing for us and spending time with us out of your busy schedule. We truly appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure.
Right, ladies?
All right, and I'm going to introduce our other speakers. We have some student interns on here that's going to be hosting with our session. So I'm let them introduce themselves and where they're from, and we'll go from there.
My name is Dominic Battoni. I'm from the Los Angeles chapter.
Hi everyone, super excited to be here. My name is Angelica Guiniga and I am the Community Relations Intern from LA chapter.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Douglas and I'm an intern for the Little Rock chapter. I'm actually with Deontay all the time.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Ms. Weatherspoon, pleasure to have you. Name's Giselle Garcia, and I'm also from the Alley chapter.
Awesome. And I would like to introduce our special guest today. This is Ms. Sharonda Weatherspoon. She is the Senior Vice President of Stores and also co-director of Culture and Diversity for Ralph Lauren North America. So definitely great to have you, Miss Sharonda.
Well, thank you. I am so excited to be here and to really be able to just spend, some time with all of you. I see many of you sitting in your classrooms, and that takes me back years and years ago when I was actually sitting probably in some very similar seats while I was in high school. And, literally just trying to figure a lot of things out. So today, what I wanted to just share with you is kind of like a few little stories, because, I remember how it was when people came and spoke to me. And sometimes I was like, well, what exactly are they talking about? And they seem like they have it all together. And sometimes as adults, we don't always talk to people about the things that have not always gone so right in our lives. So you guys look at us as perfect when the reality is that there's no perfect people. And to get to any level of success, you've actually had so many situations where you've had a lot of disappointments as well. So I'm going to share a lot of what my experience has been. And I hope you guys, really ask questions. I'm pretty much an open book. So if there's something that you are really curious about, then definitely feel free to ask, because, I'm here to make sure that you're getting the most out of this. I am going to share my screen though, because I have a few things that I just think are pretty important, that when I usually talk about who I am, I just start off by talking about a lot of different things. So when I think about me and I think about my journey, this little girl probably sums it up. She's happy. She is joyful. She has pigtails. She has a bow. And this is basically who I was growing up. I grew up from very humble beginnings. I'm from New Brunswick, New Jersey, where, we actually grew up in situations that were very challenging. It was, very common for me to see people that were dealing drugs right outside of my house. Many times I was walking through school through some of those same dynamics. By the time I had reached 15, I couldn't even tell you the amount of people that had actually died, or that had gotten shot, or that something really bad had happened to. So much so that by the time I got to high school, many times I actually felt numb to things that were going on because I actually just thought this is how the world was and this was pretty normal. But at the same time, I also had a community of people, very similar to this organization here, where I knew that people really cared about me and they saw some really great things inside of me and they were pushing me to be excellent and to really do a great job and to really make sure that I was following a path that might have been a lot different from a lot of people that I was going to school with. And, even now I'm very grateful for the group of people that I call my village, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to succeed. So when I think about this little girl, like I said, she's happy, she's joyful. This little girl attended the University of Virginia in 10th grade, and I did my 10th and 11th grade year at the University of Virginia. I came back to graduate from high school, and the first college that I actually went to was Duke University. I had a very challenging experience there. So I transitioned to Winston-Salem State University, which is also in North Carolina. And my area of study was actually chemistry. So a lot different from the role that I'm playing now, which is in retail, but there's still so many things that were very similar. I went on to actually work in a job that I didn't really love. And I really quickly found out that I was not very passionate about it. So I made some changes. And I started working at the Gap. And I was so afraid to even tell my parents that I had, changed careers because I wasn't sure what they might have said or what they might have thought. But very quickly, I was promoted to a manager. And then, 5 years later, I had a lot of great experiences. I was actually able to go to Japan for a few years and actually work as a leader there when we were opening up stores. And that was an experience within itself. So anytime I hear people talking about wanting to live internationally, I think it's an experience that almost everyone should have, because you have to fully immerse yourself into a culture that's a lot different. And it really shows you what it means to be an outsider and really thinking differently about how you assimilate, but also how you also make sure that you communicate and how you really are looking at doing things differently. So then I actually transitioned to Ralph Lauren. So I've been at Ralph Lauren now for about 23 years, and I've actually had the good fortune to have a lot of different roles. So while some people have really changed companies a lot of times, I've had the good fortune of being able to be in a lot of different roles. I started my career as a general manager. I then became the general manager running a $4 million and then a $10 million store, where I was the person that was in charge of all of our employees and all of the things that happened. I then became a district director, which is responsible for several different stores within a region. And then I became the director of human resources. And that was probably my scariest transition overall, because I did not have a degree in, human resources or law. So a lot of things that I was really trusted to do, I didn't really have the skill set to do it. But I really believed that I could really utilize my resources, the people that I knew, and I could really ask a lot of questions and figure some things out. So I spent about 5 or 6 years in human resources. And then I transitioned into operations, where I ran operations and I ran communications. I did a lot of amazing things during that time period, where I got an opportunity to really bring a lot of key projects to our company. And I was directly responsible and accountable for really driving them. And then the role that I'm in now, where I'm responsible for all of our stores. So I'm responsible for all of our stores in North America. I'm responsible for over $1.6 billion in business. I have like over 10,000 employees that I'm responsible for. And I will tell you, I really can honestly say that I'm probably one of the people that really, really love my job. So that's a little bit about me. I wanted to show you a few other things just so that way you could get to know me a little better before I start taking, questions. So I'm a pretty simple person. And, I live by these quotes. My grandmother has influenced me a whole heck of a lot. But one of my quotes is, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. So many times in my career, in my life, I haven't always had the same opportunities as everyone else. And it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because of the way I look, because I am a woman, because I'm African American. There can be a lot of different things. But the reality is that every single time I felt like I didn't have an opportunity or opportunity didn't knock, I said to myself, I'm going to build a door. So even when I think about simple things like being in the role that I'm in now, like that was a great example of me building a door. When I felt like people kept on telling me no, and I'm like, I believe in this, I said, I'm going to build a door. So this is one of the phrases that I really, spend a lot of time. And this is like one of my key phrases. Another thing that you'll hear me say all the time are no obstacles, opportunities. I look at things through, optimistic viewpoints. When I think about this gentleman right here, he could just say, okay, I'm not going to try. But he's like, you know what? I might not have any legs, but I'm still determined to win this race. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to figure some things out, and I'm still going to compete. Regardless to all of the things that I might not have, I'm going to focus on those areas that I do have. I'm going to focus on those areas that will make me stronger, that I have to figure out how to be stronger in order to compete and also to make sure that I'm being successful. The other part, and Eminem is one of my favorite rappers, but I also like this. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow, because opportunity comes once in a lifetime. And for me, what this says is that every single day you have to be red carpet ready. You don't get an opportunity to have a second chance. Every single day you are making decisions. You are either preparing yourself for this opportunity or you're not. Like when I think about this song, and this is literally, I put this song on full blast in the mornings when I'm going to work because it is literally like my jam. People are like in their cars and they're probably like, what is she listening to? But I am singing it loud. I am moving my head around because all of the words really mean a lot. When he talks about his palms were sweaty, the fact that, he has had so many challenges. And in one verse, he actually talks about how he actually did choke. But that situation where he wasn't ready really showed him how he needed to now be ready for every single situation. And he was so committed to not really making the same mistakes over and over. And then the other part that I really like, so in high school, I played a lot of sports. I actually played basketball. I played the 3, and I also ran track. And those were the 2 sports. I also was a cheerleader as well, but my favorite sports were definitely basketball and track. So the other part that I also think about is when people think that I can't because of my difference, I will raise my bar and jump higher. And when I think about a difference, it's not just about my gender, it's not just about my nationality, but when people think that I can't at any given time, I'm constantly focused on, okay, if you don't think I can do it and I believe that I can, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I am not going to let any obstacles stand in my way. So when they think that I can't, I'm going to raise my bar and I am going to jump higher. And I'm going to make sure that anyone who thought that I would not be successful or thought that just because I came from the area that I came from in New Brunswick, New Jersey, that, a place where a lot of times people are not always known to be very successful, that I'm going to really make sure that I'm defying all odds. So this is another, phrase that I really live by. And then the last one I'm going to leave you with is that it really takes a village, and to whom much is required, to whom much is given, much is required. And when I think about all of the things that I've learned very early on, my grandmother taught us the, importance of giving back. We were delivering Meals on Wheels as young people. We were running up all those steps to deliver senior citizens meals. And I don't know if I really understood the importance of it then, but as I've gotten older, I've understood the importance of really taking a village. And I'm very thankful for my village and those people who really surrounded themselves around me, whether it was my after school programs, my sports programs, because that's really where I got a lot of the confidence to really feel like I was really ready to take on the world. And then my last one, before I let you guys start asking me some questions, is really around building bridges. So I often say a phrase like build a bridge and get over it. And I say that, not because things are, always going to be really great, but you have a responsibility and a opportunity to say, okay, I can just stay right here and think about all of the negative things, or I can build a bridge and I can walk over it, I can run over it, I can skip over it, Or if someone is doing something and you need to really reach out, you can build a bridge. So I always usually like to end really talking about building bridges. I think bridges are important. Bridges are they help to connect, they help to bring people together, they help you to get from one place to the other. And I believe in building bridges versus building walls, because walls really construct and they don't really allow you to always make sure that you're having that level of connectivity. So where you can, think about how you build a bridge. Building a bridge for you might be creating a relationship with someone that may not have any friends at your school, or someone that might be new, that might not be as familiar with your school as you might be. Building a bridge might be saying sorry to someone that you may have offended, not knowingly. So I usually like to think about this whole concept of building a bridge and how we're really connecting, because we're probably a lot more similar than different. So that's a little bit about me. I'm hoping that I can spend, our time really maybe answering some questions that maybe, you all might have, because, I think that, I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions, because I think that that's how we all can continue to really learn and grow.
Definitely. So what's going to happen is me and some of the interns are going to ask you a few questions, and then we're going to give the students a chance to be able to ask their questions as well. And at the end, we got a surprise for everyone. So we're definitely looking forward to letting you know about that as well. So Sharonda, I guess this question from me starting out is you have a very impressive background, like extremely impressive. So like in your role as the senior VP of the stores in North America for Ralph Lauren, what are some of the obstacles that you dealt with in your role, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, so I mean, literally, there's an obstacle every single day. Like right now, we're having major obstacles with hiring. We definitely need to hire a significant amount of people, especially as we're going into holiday, and there's not enough workers. So some of the things that we're doing is just being creative. I do believe that creating a really great work environment actually creates a scenario where other people want to really work in that environment with you. So we're doing a lot as it relates to engagement. I would say one of the biggest challenges that I had, though, was when I actually transitioned into the role of human resources, because like I said, I did not have a lot of knowledge about law. And, it's not just enough to know about law, but you actually need to know about law. The laws in LA are a lot different than the laws in Georgia. Every state, every municipality has its own laws, and you really do have to be very aware of what's happening, because if not, you can't really just apply a one size fits all. That was a really big obstacle for me. And then not only that, we also had to be very well versed in laws in Canada, because Canada is a part of my responsibility as well. So what I would say that I actually did was I started to really just read a lot. I started to make sure that I was staying abreast of things that were happening. I was spending my time in the mornings, I subscribed to certain publications to really make sure that I was starting to get more information. And then I started to really connect with people that I probably would not have connected with in my other roles, just to really make sure that I was spending a lot more time with them. So that way I was learning. And then lastly, I would probably say I was asking a lot of questions. So those are some of the things that I've done just overall.
Hi, Sharonda. I have a question. So back in my days, I played basketball and track myself, and I was a 3 as well. So we have some similarities right there. My question is, how has playing sports in high school helped with your mindset and preparing for your career?
Yeah, so one thing that you will find out, if you notice, almost all of my things that I talked to you about was all about competition. Like, I am competitive. And I think when I think about, every single day you're competing to some degree, and people may not necessarily think that that sounds so popular, but you're competing with scores, you're competing with grades, you always have a scorecard, you know where you stand every single moment. But competing in sports and even just being a part of a team really helps you to really understand teamwork, working together, playing your role, not letting people down, really teaches accountability, teaches responsibility. And I just think that a lot of times I just find that because I was so competitive and am so competitive, I always want to win. Like if I lose at anything, I am just not happy. Like I want to win at every single thing that is happening. Like losing is never an option for me. I mean, I don't even care. Like sometimes I might be walking with somebody in the mall and not even knowing it, like I'm trying to walk faster than them. Like little things, like it's so bizarre, but like I am just so competitive and I bring a lot of that to work. So when I'm thinking about like challenges that are happening or things that are going on that I need to really look at a little differently, I'm constantly saying to myself, okay, how do I really overcome this so that way we can really win as a team?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my question is, what has been like your biggest drive through finding your way through your career? And like, what are you like, especially when you were unsure of like something or unmotivated?
Yeah, I think this whole question around motivation is really important because there are always going to be parts of your job or parts about school that you're just not very excited to do, but you still need to do them. So what I try to do, interestingly enough, I actually try to get those things done first because I know that for me, it's going to be a little more challenging to get them done and I might drag or I might procrastinate. So I try to do that. But some of the things that have really helped me throughout my career and really navigating, I would say, is really finding really good mentors, but also good sponsors. And mentors a lot of times have been assigned to me just based on the roles that I've been, blessed to have. But when I think about sponsors, and sponsors are different than mentors, sponsors have actually helped me to navigate. And they have really helped me to show up as my best. They are people who are talking about me and what I can do when I am not in the room. And I think I've been able to get the support of sponsors primarily because the work that I have done has been excellent. So when your work really speaks for itself, your ability to really get other people to really help to move you into the conversation, I found it to be a lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question. It's what do you like most about your job and what's the toughest part of your job?
Okay, so there's so much that I like about my job. Like I'm one of those people that I believe that if you do not like what you're doing, you should literally do something else. I mean, life is too short. You don't have a lot of time. So, I mean, you might think you have a lot of time, but you really don't. So I love the fact that every single day I get an opportunity to solve a different challenge. And I'm also able to work with some of the most talented people in the industry. Aside from the fact that I love fashion, like I can come to work like how I am today with like my army fatigue jacket, my denim shirt, and then other days I might have on a sequins shirt and a leather blazer. So the fact that I get an opportunity to really work with some really amazing people and am able to really utilize all of my brain power, that for me is exciting. I would say the toughest part of my job is really influencing a lot of people and really thinking differently about how you meet the needs of so many people. In my responsibility, I have about 10,000 people. Of course, I don't know every single person, but this whole, accountability to really listen and to really understand what is really going on so that way you can really make the right, choices, the decisions for, larger groups become really important.
Absolutely, that's been great. I think in everything that you've shared so far, Sharonda has been nothing but truth and fact. And I think every one of us could resonate with everything that you just stated, which kind of brings me to, the story of your bring up and, your background where I think a lot of us do come from like lower income areas where there's high violence and just all bad to kind of navigate a pathway to that wrong side. So if you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self to help them feel better or kind of keep them on the right path rather than taking the wrong one?
Yeah, so, in my scenario, I was very blessed to have a whole village of people. So in many cases, you could say the path that I took was the right one, but there were still a lot of things that were not easy about my path. And, sometimes I used to feel really guilty. I had a best friend who wound up being addicted to drugs, to heroin. She wound up, going to jail very early. And there was a long time in my life that I felt guilty. And I would say like, wow, like, why wasn't, we grew up in the same situation. Why did this happen to her, but it didn't happen to me? So I lived with that for a very long time. I think what I would probably say is that, there was definitely something about me as a young person where, because I had such great role models, and I found role models in a lot of people, whether they were my teachers, my coaches, they really, really helped me to make sure that I was not making some of those decisions that some of my friends did. I was also very active in a drill team where I was a captain. And, because I had sports and because I had teams that I was actually working with and responsible and accountable to, and I felt like I played such a key role, there were just certain things that, I was just determined not to do. I also, from a very young age, I just knew that I did not want to be poor. I can't tell you how many times I would come home and I'm doing my homework, before the lights, before it got dark outside because our lights were off. Like it was, I won't say it was all bad, but I think through those bad situations, like I'm grateful for how I grew up. I think at one time I wasn't always grateful for it, but it just taught me so much about giving back. It taught me a lot about empathy. It taught me a lot about seeing things through other people's perspective and not just automatically assuming that despite the same level of circumstances that everyone can do certain things. So it really taught me a lot, and I would never want to come up in a different way because, like I said, I felt like I learned so much. But at the same time, it also made me very determined. I never wanted to be poor. I never wanted to be in a situation where our lights were out. I never wanted to be in a position where I had to ask people for things. And some of those things are challenging to today. Like right now, it is hard for me to ask people for things because I always wanted to be in a situation where I was never, ever having to ask. So a lot of those things that you grow up with and a lot of those experiences really do stay with you as an adult. And there's some things that I work to overcome, all the time. And I think it's important, but at the end of the day, I'm really thankful and grateful for how I was brought up. I can't imagine being brought up any other way, but I will say, despite all of the things that I didn't have, we had a lot of love in our house. And sometimes I think people really they don't always understand how their parents really, really do want the best thing for them. And I think that is so, so key.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you say, use what you have, not what you don't, and control what you can. So definitely, absolutely.
Okay, like continuing with like the last round of questions for, I guess, for me and some of the interns. My question for you, Sharonda, would be, with people applying for jobs, as far as even like internships, like with resumes, what are some things you look for in a resume when people apply for jobs, and what is something that people think should add to their resume as far as anybody looking to work for Ralph Lauren or any type of job as far as experience goes?
Yeah, I would say it probably looks a little different. I think, and if you're in high school, you might not have this whole extensive, work history. So I look for a lot of volunteer events that they've done. I would probably say I look for that in college as well. I also look at some of the skills and capabilities. So people who, everything that we do is kind of like a team sport. So if I think that people can't really work well with other people, that's probably like a red flag. So I look for people who really can work well independently, but also can really work well in teams, because that is a big way that we get things accomplished. I know at Ralph Lauren, we are highly collaborative in terms of how we operate and how we work. So that becomes really important as well.
I totally agree with that. Piggyback off Deontay's question, if I wanted to start a career in like fashion design or even start my own clothing line, what tools or resources would you recommend me to study or follow to gain that experience?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot. I think the first is that there's a lot of colleges and community colleges that actually have courses because I think sometimes people don't always realize the technical aspects, especially if you have not necessarily studied fashion design. They don't realize that there's a whole technical side of it that is very, very key, in addition to you just being able to be creative. So what I would probably recommend is that you start by really making sure that you understand the technical side, and that you also do understand the business side. Like, you'll be surprised at how many people really don't understand negotiating, or really some other things that I would also say, getting a mentor in that area. So knowing that this is something that you're going to be venturing out to do, even if it means that someone is mentoring you, virtually. There's a lot of people on, social media, Instagram, that I actually follow that are, new fashion designers or have been fashion designers that are just really starting to release clothing lines. So I think some of those things are really important. So getting a mentor, really thinking more about the technical side, being really great at understanding the business aspect, and really, I would say, negotiating.
Yeah, so my next question for you, Sharonda, I know you talked a little bit about like first you figuring out that you wanted to like do something in chemistry, but then you're like, no, this is not for me. So for students that are still trying to figure out like what they want to do, like what advice do you give them?
Yeah, I think, the reality is that who you are at 17 and 18 is a small fraction of who you will be at 40 or 45. So I think sometimes we don't always give people the latitude to not really know what you want to do. And I know it feels really scary because it's almost like you have to go from high school to knowing that you want to be an attorney and just figuring it out all the way through. But the reality is that most of the time life doesn't work that way. We're learning as we go, we're adjusting, we're, creating new avenues. What I would say that would be really helpful is learning about as many fields as possible. So when I think about the retail field, not a lot of people really understand. When they think about retail, they think, there's a very limited version of what they really understand retail to be. And we have finance, we have fashion design, we have, procurement, which is really getting all of our supplies. We have construction, we have real estate, we have stores. There's just so many different avenues that you can take. The other part too is that, when I even think about skills that are required to even be a general manager that works in our stores, like our store managers run multi-million-dollar businesses. Very few of our stores are $1 million. So when you think about some of the skills that our team members really do have to really not only be a business driver, but a motivator of people, they have to be really good at operations, and then they have to really be focusing on the finances. So I would just say, do as much research as you can. And where possible, try to shadow people. If you don't really know something about a career, try to shadow them. So that way you can have a better understanding.
There's some really good advice. I agree. Like, it's really good to have experience in different fields in order to make your company like better and more successful. And with all this advice that you're giving us, what advice have you received? What's the best advice that you received that has helped you grow or change your perspective?
Yeah, so one piece of advice that I've gotten, I would say is who you are really determines, what you will be, but because all things really act according to their nature. So what I mean by that is it's important to really figure out who you are just innately. And you might not know what you want to do, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that you're thinking about the core values that you actually have. So that way, whatever role you decide to do, you're going to take some of those key things to those same, to that same job or to that same team. When I think about me as a young person, when people see me now, they're like, oh my gosh, I could totally, see you doing that. I was always competitive. I was always trying to be in charge. Like, even with my brothers, I had to be in charge of them. When I was in the drill team, I had to be in charge. When I was when I played basketball, I had to be the captain. When I was a cheerleader, I had to be the captain. So largely, a lot of who I was then is just manifesting itself differently now. So I think it's important to just at least know who you are becoming as a person. And then I would say the other parts, you know, other people helped me with. So I didn't know how important it was going to be to give back, but my grandmother made us do it at a very young age. So now it's just a natural part of what I do because it's who I was during that time period.
Absolutely. Again, I think, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think, again, at least I don't know if I speak for everybody else here, but I could definitely speak for myself and say that everything that you've gone to up to here is because of that door of opportunity that you've built, like you've mentioned earlier. So we definitely want to be mindful with your time, Ms. Weatherspoon. I know we're kind of wrapping that down. You're super busy and don't want to bother you more than you have. But is there any last words of encouragement for these young professionals in the making to kind of keep them motivated and encouraged that, you know, that they will get somewhere one day?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my Eminem song. Literally, like it goes back to that. Like when I say like you almost need to download the lyrics, but it goes back to that. Like you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow, because opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Like really focus on being an excellent version of yourself. Have confidence. When you know that something is right, do it. When you know that something is wrong, don't do it. And most importantly, be a leader. And being a leader is not always being in front of the crowd. Sometimes being a leader is just knowing what direction to take. And, you know, the first rule is that you have to be able to lead yourself first and foremost. And if you're starting to lead yourself in the right direction, then everything else is going to fall into place.
Okay, Sharonda, we're going to go into the questions for the kids, but I think Coach Perry has something he wants to ask you first before we get the kid questions.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Sharonda, this is a very important question, okay? So when you were deciding on what school you were going to, okay, what factors went into that? See, I went to another school in Durham called North Carolina Central University.
Okay.
But I'm also from the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
So I definitely rep my UNC. And if I heard you correctly, I think you made the mistake and said Duke. Did you? Is that what I heard?
Yeah. So long story. So I like Central, but I'm also from Winston-Salem, so SU in the house.
Okay. Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in North Carolina. I have family that live down there now. My youngest brother is actually down there. He just moved to Raleigh. We're actually from, well, where we're from where my dad lived in North Carolina is not even, it's the closest town is probably Creedmoor. So it's a very, very small area. It doesn't have like a post
I know where is that?
Okay, so it's actually right outside of Creedmoor. Okay. Creedmoor and Oxford. So my brother spent a lot of time in Durham, but now he just moved to Raleigh because he's in the tech world. But a lot of it had to do with my stepmother was actually working at Duke University. So that's why I wound up going to Duke. So. Well,
for Dookie, you're pretty good. We love you.
Okay, we're gonna go to the kid questions. Does any students have any questions at Hampton or here at Llewellyn? Anybody got any questions about anything? Oh, we got one.
So, like during COVID and all that type of stuff, like what were the challenges that you had to go through, and how was you able to overcome those challenges?
Yeah. So if I heard you correctly, you said during COVID, where were some of the challenges?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think some of the big ones are just really not being able to, you know, really be out in stores with your team members, and the fact that we were starting to open up stores and there were very limited amount of people that could go. So I think that was one. But then I had some of the same challenges that many of you had. We were basically in a lockdown, so we had to really start adjusting how we looked at things. I was so accustomed to, you know, having this whole routine that I was, you know, going through and really looking at much differently. And then that whole routine stopped. So I had to start adjusting to a new normal as well. One of the things that I found out is that a lot of what I was doing all the time was working. And I did not create a scenario where I was spending probably enough time really focused on some of the other things that are important. So I started doing other things, like doing a lot more reading. I went out and I brought a clarinet because I said, you know what, I used to love playing the clarinet when I was, younger. So I'm going to start doing this again. So I think for me, COVID wasn't really so terrible. I think that there was a lot of positivity in the pandemic. I think a lot of people got an opportunity to really do things that they would have never gotten an opportunity to do had they just been kind of like going about their day-to-day lives. So it really helped me to take a pause to really focus on some of the things that were probably most important that I probably didn't have at the top of my priority list in terms of my actions. My words probably said one thing, my actions probably didn't. So it gave me the opportunity to really prioritize and really come from this place of, really reconnecting with myself to really be a better me.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was wondering how, you say you went to Japan. I was just wondering how it was and if you've been to different countries, specifically France.
Yep.
And
So
by the way, my name is Sarissa Reed.
Yeah, so I would actually recommend everyone to be able to travel internationally. Japan was a new experience for me. I was still pretty young. I was in my early 20s. Obviously, I did not learn the language, but there were a lot of people there that actually spoke English and we had interpreters. But I also didn't eat a lot of the foods as well. So really being able to understand things differently from a cultural standpoint became really important. It is definitely a much different culture than we have here in the United States. So also being very aware and reading a lot before I went there on some of their customs. So that way I wasn't doing things or wearing colors that, offended people was really important. I have been to Paris several different times. I've been to I've been to a lot of places because I really do like to travel. So I've been to Paris, I've been to Brussels, Belgium, I've been to Amsterdam. I've been to most places in Europe overall. So, obviously I've been to several different areas in Mexico. So there's been a lot of places that I've traveled to. I think some of my big learnings that I tell people that live here in the United States is probably one of the only places where people only speak one language. So where possible, I really do stress the importance of focusing on speaking another language. And it can be whatever language you choose, but I do think that that is probably one thing that I find to be a lot different when I actually do travel internationally.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we got time for 2 more questions and then we gotta wrap it up. What's your question?
I wanted to know what her main goal.
Yeah.
He said, what's your main goal?
My main goal?
Run the business.
Oh, as it relates to business, I would probably say my main goal is definitely to be a president. I would like to be able to do that before I retire. But I think about my goals in terms of just being a complete person. Obviously, my main goal is to make the world a better place and to really be able to think about things much differently and leave things a lot better, than where I found it. So that I would probably say is my main goal. And I do feel like everything else will fall in place.
You've talked a lot about motivation. So my question was, when you decided not to do chemistry and when you started working at Gap, what kept you motivated to say that, like, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to write it out. I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah, that was pretty easy. My mom and my dad, because first of all, I didn't even tell them that I had another job for probably about 3 weeks because I just didn't know what they were going to say. So that is not something that I would recommend young people do. I think you always have to be honest with your parents, but I just didn't know how to tell them. But I think I just found out, like, I like talking to people. I like interacting. I like being able to, like, I get energy from, connectivity. And in that role, I didn't get a chance to do that. And it wasn't what I thought, but I made a decision very quickly to say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to figure this out in a much, much different way. So I think those are things that I would probably say really help to motivate me. And then, I mean, the fact that I was doing what I like to do and I was having a lot of fun also made it very motivating. And that's why I'd say to people, you know, sometimes people really chase after money. And that a lot of times doesn't really work, because a lot of times people say that they are really focused on money, but they're really not. They want to do something that also is very fulfilling. And I happen to have, you know, been able to be in a position where I found something that I can make a good amount of money, and I can also be very happy at what it is that I'm doing. So that part for me is important.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, but before we go, I got a surprise for everybody. Thanks to Ralph Lauren. Everybody on this Zoom is going to be receiving a free Ralph Lauren T-shirt. So we got your sizes. We're going to be sending those to you. So yeah, congratulations. Thanks to Ralph Lauren. Everybody's receiving a free Ralph Lauren T-shirt.
Amazing. We're so excited to be able to give you guys some things that are going to help out your wardrobe. And thank you guys for being so amazing. We appreciate you. We appreciate the partnership that we have. And if there's anything else that we can help with, just let us know.
All right. Thank you for talking with us today. And like I said, we hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.